prime time on the top game, it's a fine line. Man in the match, that's Dave I. He's the main guy, keep a close eye. Make sure you don't make no wrong play, cause I'm with Jose and Andre. When Cyrus comes to walk in, you better know that you are watching Premier League. Dave I, tell what time we on. Prime time. Let me hear you say Premier League. Dave I, tell what time we on. Prime time.
Hello and welcome to Premier League Primetime Season 4, Episode 2. And yes, we're back with my final podcast episode before I head off to Europe. And speaking of that, I just have to say big up to all those showing the love as well. Of course, I'm back here with these three. It's a lose-lose situation, but you know what? How are we all doing? As I said, it's always a lose-lose situation every single time. And let's just get straight into this. Starting off with Arsenal, who, let's forget about the match at the weekend. Serious, looking at the past 4 matches and 4 games for Arsenal, scores for Mikel Arteta and standout players for you, both on a negative and positive side of things.
Yeah, I'd say it would have been perfect if we didn't concede against Fulham at the end when they had 10 men. That was pretty disappointing. Probably have to give it, are we doing 1 through 10 or letters?
1 through 10, sure.
Probably give us an 8.5. I think, 10 points, tied for second. Pretty good. I think the win against Man U really showed character. Some iffy wins against Palace and Forest. But, if you're going to want to compete for the title, those are the wins that, you're going to have to, keep going, go through. And, with Palace, we had 10 men, I believe. So was it Palace we had 10 men or was it Forest we had 10 men?
I think it was Crystal Palace when Tommy also got sent off. That was never a red card.
I didn't think that was a red either, but yeah, it really showed character. Getting that win, I think it was a big plus that we had Gabriel back on the side. I really don't know why he wasn't starting because he showed his intelligence there with the offside trap. I'm sure you like that one, Dave. But everyone, Rice has really been great. To be honest, I think it's 99% passing accuracy. I read that's incredible. When you're paying a price tag for like that amount, you're gonna expect what he's delivered so far. So overall, I give it 8.5. I think everyone really besides like Havertz has been pretty decent. So yeah.
And speaking of Kai Havertz, just talking about this whole Kai Havertz conundrum, if you're Arteta, what do you do with Kai Havertz? Because he's here now. You spent £65 million on him from Chelsea. Everyone, including yourself, we all had our reservations. Let's be honest here about Kai Havertz coming in to more or less playing that Granit Xhaka role, which again everyone had their reservations. Do you think that's the right place for him? Do you think he's an impact player off the bench, or maybe does he fit into the front three somehow? Where, in your opinion, do you think Kai Havertz belongs for the time being right now?
Yeah, I'd say we should put him on the bench, and I'm not saying he doesn't play. I'm saying he should come on as a sub. I think that's been working with Fabio Vieira. He's been getting his confidence back from doing that. He's been very good recently. I definitely think he should start on the bench, but the thing is, Partey is now out, I believe, for a couple of weeks, 6 weeks,
I believe.
So, it's really between him, Fabio Vieira, ESR, we had Jorginho as well. Not I wouldn't say amazing options, but, it's still options. And I think that we could play one of the center midfielders besides Havertz, and I think he should come off the bench. But it's only been 4 games. Arteta seems to really, really back him. And so in Arteta, I trust.
Yeah, and speaking of Mikel Arteta, and a question to ask to the whole panel, for everyone. Do you guys think Mikel Arteta at the moment, we've seen him play Thomas Partey right back, we've seen Gabriel on the bench, Kiwior left back, and he's really trying to do this inverted outside backs coming inside as interiors and the left back Zinchenko tucking to the midfield. Do you think Arteta is experimenting too much when you look at how he got rid of Tierney, sent him out on loan, but Arteta hasn't been fancying him anyways? Got rid of Balogun. He believes in Nketiah to compete with Gabriel Jesus. Do you think that Arteta is experimenting too much and it's just lacking a bit of just simple fundamentals in regards to football? Do you think that Arteta really is on the right track with what he's doing at Arsenal?
I mean, we have 10 points out of 12, I believe, right? So I think it's clearly definitely not not working, but yeah, I found it interesting. Like he was experimenting with Partey. I think against Manu, he really gave a formation that worked well, and I think he's going to stick with that. I think the experimenting for that is kind of done. I think Ben White, right back, Zinchenko, left back is kind of what we're going to see throughout most of the season, I hope. And, sure, he did experiment, but it's not like it went horribly wrong or anything. We still won most of our games. And I think he just did that to really see what was going on. It's a shame that Partey got injured. It really kind of makes me think, should we have sold him during the summer? But yeah.
Jose, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to compete with City for the title, it's going to take some experimenting. And if you're going to do it, you're going to want to get it out of the way, get answers at the beginning of the season, and still come away with the points, which they have. So I would argue that he's probably done it very successfully, given how they've come out of these last 4 games.
Jose, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's that crazy what he's doing. We all think of Zinchenko as a left back, but he was a midfielder a few years ago too. So I think that what he's doing, especially with Partey, is not too crazy, and I think it's working fairly well for them.
Fair enough. Getting into Aston Villa, looking at their recent their past 4 games, scores and ratings through Unai Emery and stand-up players both on a positive and negative side of things. What do you guys think?
Either way. Yeah, I'd probably give them about a 6. I think you look at the results; they won comfortably against 2 sides that they should be winning comfortably against, and lost against sides that we know are better than them. So it's hard to make too many judgments of the results themselves. I think you look at players individually. Pau Torres has looked pretty good on the ball. They're going to be a project, but I think defensively they will grow stronger, and then hopefully that offensive Diaby and Watkins can come together.
Yeah, speaking of Moussa Diaby, I mean, he's really, really hit the ground running. I mean, Jose, do you think that he's someone that in the future is going to be, a force to be reckoned with, or do you think he'll be a player that eventually, after a while, Premier League sides will sort of just figure out what he's got? Or do you think that, I'll use Antony as a comparison, do you think that he has more in his locker than someone like Antony in regards to the assets that he has as a footballer, in regards to being potentially not just a one-trick pony? What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's a good player. I think he's tricky. I think he has a lot more to offer than Antony does. I think he's a lot quicker than Antony, definitely. And I think he probably should eventually leave Villa if he wants to really make his mark in the Premier League, because Villa obviously it hasn't seemed like it recently, but they are more of a defensive side under Unai Emery, and they do play often deep. So I think that it could benefit him creatively to be at a more attacking side in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I also think that the addition of Pau Torres has actually we've seen what he's brought in and how he's also affected players around him. I think Enzri Konsa in particular I've seen real evolution in his game. He's now looking like a ball-playing center back when he's got a coach like Unai Emery who demands it, and also someone like Pau Torres who's ingrained in that DNA, being brought up at Villarreal. Emery is as the manager, they know each other, and I guess that Matty Cash has been popping up with a few goals. I mean, what do you guys think of Matty Cash so far this season? I mean, have you seen, because this is a different Matty Cash than we've seen in seasons gone by. Do you think that there's been noticeable changes in his game?
Well, we definitely haven't seen him scoring a brace in a match recently. So I think that adding goals to someone's game is never a bad thing, and I think it's good for him that he's been able to do that recently. He's been playing very well so far this season.
Fair enough. Next, getting into Bournemouth, looking at their past 4 games, which to be fair, I mean, the numbers and the actual scores can say otherwise, but, that's their start to the season. That definitely has not been an easy one. Taking a look at their games so far, scores and ratings for Andoni Iraola, the brand new manager, of Bournemouth and standout players both on a negative and positive side of things?
Yeah, very tough start for them. They have probably the West Ham game might be the only game where they would maybe feel they could have got something more out of. But I think that Dominic Solanke, I would definitely point out as someone who's had a very, very good start to the season and popping up with goals in almost every game. And I think he could be a very, very important player for them this season. Kind of reminds me of Raul Jimenez a little bit a few seasons ago. But tough start for them. I'd probably give them a C or a D so far.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I probably couldn't agree more. I mean, with Bournemouth right now, when you look at, they have one outlet in Dominic Solanke. Do you think that if Solanke is out injured, do you think scoring goals for them could be a potential problem?
Yeah, definitely.
Fair enough. And a team who hasn't really seemed like they've really missed their main goal scorer, going into Brentford, looking at their past 4 matches, scores and ratings for Thomas Frank and stand-up players both on a negative and positive side of things. Serious. And do you think Brentford are strong enough, looking at Brian Mbeumo and Wissa, to carry on scoring the goals for them this season and taking over the mantle for Ivan Toney for the time being?
Yeah, I mean, they've been doing it so far, to be honest. That is definitely, that was the question, right? Can, the goals still come in after Tony's been banned? For how long is he banned for?
I think eight months or something like that.
That's crazy. So yeah, that that was the big question. My voice is going. 1 second. That was the big question, and they've lived up to so far, especially Wembu. I think he has 3-4 goals. He's doing very well. And, he's gonna keep having him and Weiss are gonna keep having to play well for sure. But as I said with Brentford, I think they're gonna do just fine as usual for the season. I always been a big fan of their left back Henry, and I think they're gonna continue to do well.
Yeah, definitely. I think Rico Henry's, I think we've been talking about him for a long time at this point now. When you look at the likes of Jensen as well, I think you have to give him huge props as well. Him and Norgard have just anchored that midfield. So I remember Walid had said it in the season finale last season. Brentford have a very, very, very good midfield trio. Norgard, Jensen, and Onyeka coming in off the bench for as of this season. But I think when you look at that midfield, there's a lot of balance, and it's so key to have balance in your midfield, because when you lack balance, obviously you leave gaps everywhere, and you can get hit on the counter attack, and you'll probably lose that midfield battle 9 times out of 10. But Sear, sticking with you, taking a look at Brighton, and when you look at Brighton, I mean, they have done. They just keep on impressing. They will continue to impress. Where's the limit for Roberto De Zerbi, everyone? We don't know. But scores and ratings for Roberto De Zerbi and stand-up players both on a negative and positive side of things.
Yeah, they've done brilliant. Recent hat-trick for Evan Ferguson. It just seems like every time they lose someone, they just keep going on. It's with Southampton, they've lost players. They saw their kind of demise, but Brighton, it's not like that. They just continue to bring in great players. I think it was great that they kept Estupiñán. The Matoma. I don't know if you guys saw his goal a couple games ago. Pretty brilliant.
Absolutely fantastic.
And losing McAllister, losing other players, it really hasn't seemed to affect them that much. Solly March is getting the goals. Everyone is really playing their part in this team, and I think that's the most important. Even Welbeck's, he's there.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the additions of João Pedro coming in from Watford for £30 million. Spending it out of the side, I think a lot of people think he's guaranteed starter, but it hasn't really looked like that. De Zerbi is going to depend on him outright. We've seen him play as a number 10 and behind the likes of Danny Welbeck, who's now injured. You have the likes of Evan Ferguson as well. And I think, and even losing the likes of Julio Enciso for now a large portion of the season, and who's a very important player for them. But I just have to ask, you look at Brighton and their new loan signing, Ansu Fati, coming in from Barcelona. I mean, we all know the promise and potential that this kid has. I mean, how huge of a signing is this from Brighton? And does this signing really and truly make a statement? Is this Brighton making a statement, at least for the season? Jose, what do you think?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
What do you think about Brighton signing Ansu Fati? Do you think that signing, that name, do you think that's Brighton making a statement in the Premier League? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think he's the player that he was 2 years ago, which is very sad because he's still very young. But I think it is definitely a statement signing. I mean, this is a guy who was once one of the true young stars of La Liga. So I think that hopefully for him, he regains his form at Brighton, and I think it is definitely a statement from Brighton.
Definitely. And do you think Brighton will have the squad depth to compete on multiple fronts? Because they're in Europe as well. Do you think that they will have the squad and depth to compete 100% in every tournament because they're competing in Europe, as I've just stated? What do you think?
I think so. I mean, I think that they've only ever shown us reasons to think that they're a proper club, and they have their stuff very organized. I think that they've always impressed, despite, like Sirius said, losing so many of their stars and still playing so well, that I think that they definitely have what it takes to compete on multiple fronts this season.
That's fair. Next, looking at Burnley, and they've only played 3 games because their match against Luton was postponed. Taking a look at their run of games, scores and ratings for Vincent Kompany and standout players on positive and negative side. Andre, I'll go to you on this.
Sweet. Yeah, not the greatest start for Burnley. I think or they did last right now. I think from what I remember.
Not the easy start to the season as well to also keep in mind.
That is definitely something to keep in mind. But yeah, I'd probably give think Burnley and Vincent Kompany together probably give him like a 4. I think he's clearly trying to do something a little different with Burnley with the high pressing and whatever. They're playing like, I think he's using the fundamentals of a Prem team. However, I think it worked well in the Championship. But if you're a side like Burnley and you want to get results against a lot of the bigger Premier League teams, it's going to need better game management. He's going to need. It's not as simple as just sort of as it was in the Championship. It's just playing this way and it'll get you things. It's going to need a little more strategy. It's going to need a little more of that Mourinho studying your opposition, whatever. So that I would say that until their game management gets better, which it could later on in the season, Burnley could improve. But right now that it isn't good. It isn't enough what they're doing if they want to compete in this league at par with the Brentfords and whatever.
Any standout players in your opinion, or not really, or positive and negative side? You could say either.
Tough. Yeah, I can't think of much right now. No.
That's fair enough. I mean, I think something to watch out for. That kid Benson. I think he's a Dutch kid. He really, really impressed me last season, and I've looked at him this season, and it hasn't looked like he's dropped off. And I think he's a very good player, very tricky player, very dynamic player on the wings, can cause a lot of problems, and I think that's a player that teams should look out for moving forward. And your explanation was going to actually lead me into my next question, which is you look at the style of Vincent Kompany plays. He's trying to mirror Pep Guardiola, and do you think that this style of football that he wants to play or that he played in the Championship, is that sustainable enough to play in the Premier League? And I'll ask the rest of the panel this as well. What do all of you think? Do you think that the style of football is sustainable enough for the Premier League, for a side like Burnley? Serious, Jose, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, I think it is. I think it is sustainable for the Premier League. I think we've seen it a lot before, and we'll continue to see it.
Serious, what do you think?
Oh, I get the style is sustainable. It's just going to take a little more game by game. It's just going to take little applications, the way that Brentford has, and a lot of other teams. So that's all it's going to take. But stylistically, it's there. It's just not enough to get you over the line if you're Burnley.
That's fair enough. I mean, Burnley is not Man City.
Yeah.
Next, going into Chelsea, Jose, over to you. And I know you were absolutely waiting for this one. Looking at Chelsea's past recent 4 games, any players that stand out to you on a negative or positive side of things, and scores or ratings for Maurizio Pochettino?
Yeah, well, I knew you were going to go to me on this because I knew you were going to make me talk about Raheem Sterling, who has had a good start to the season actually this year. Scored an excellent goal in which game was it? Luton, in the Luton game. Of course, it was against the worst team in the Premier League, but he is playing well, and I will give him big ups to Raheem Sterling for starting the season well. He's looked Chelsea's only consistent player overall this season who has looked to score a goal in every match. Disappointing levels, I would say most of their team still. Caicedo had a bad start, and then what's his name? Nicholas Jackson had a bad miss. He did get a goal in the Luton game, but he had a bad miss in the recent match that they played. They still have a lot of problems. They've had a fairly easy start to the season in terms of the teams that they've had to play against on paper, other than Liverpool, of course. So they probably would look to have a lot more than 4 points from 4 games. So probably a pretty poor start, probably a C for Pochettino so far this season. But I do have faith. I think it's a rebuild and it'll take time. I think they'll get there.
I agree. And when you look at Chelsea, I mean, it doesn't look like that, everything that happened last season. You can still see, bits of the chaos from last season trickle into the season as well. A little bit like our start from last season when we were losing 4-0 to Brentford, 2-1 to Brighton at home. We were still seeing increments of last season trickle into this season. When you look at Pochettino, it looks like he's playing a back 5, but really when you actually look at it and you watch the rotation of the players, it really looks like that he's been playing, Levi Colwill as just a left back, and he's playing Thiago Silva, Axel Disasi, center backs, and whether it's Malo Gusto now or Reece James as a right back, and he's been playing Ben Chilwell as sort of an auxiliary left wing back, left mid. Do you think that Poch needs to change the system or change the personnel? Because again, it just seems like that scoring goals, other than your boy Raheem Sterling, it seems like it's once again an issue with Chelsea right now.
I mean, I think that since 16-17, when the last time they won the league, Chelsea have only looked a competitive side when they've played a 3 at the back with wingbacks. And I think that there's no reason to change that now. I think that if Pochettino wants them to play the best that they can, he should stick to that. And I think that Enzo and Caicedo will eventually gel really well, and they could have a formidable midfield with those two.
Yeah, and I think another issue is that for whatever reason, I don't know, it's every manager, every single one, whether it's, Tuchel at the beginning of last season after Conte got he got his season routine injury, Graham Potter, Frank Lampard, but remembering what Sirius had said at the end of the season finale, let's not count Frank Lampard. And looking at Pochettino, for whatever reason, Conor Gallagher he'll always get picked for whatever reason. He'll get put in the midfield duo. He'll get put into a front 3 somehow. Do you think that this constant need to pick Gallagher is also stifling the likes of Enzo, and because he's been forced to play in sort of a front 3, you could say, when we've seen Enzo on the left, Raheem Sterling on the right, Nicholas Jackson up front? Do you think that's an issue, and maybe Pochettino should try playing Madueke, maybe Cole Palmer, sign for Man City for £45 million, or even play, Draco Malfoy at left wing? Maybe you should try something different.
I mean, I think Enzo is wasted in that position. I think you're not using Enzo's full talents if you're playing him up there, because I think he has a lot of good defensive qualities and a lot of good qualities from deep that Chelsea could use if he's in that position, but not if he's in the front 3. I think that I also do actually have faith in Mudryk. I think that the talent is there. He just hasn't adapted to the Premier League yet for whatever reason. He has amazing speed and decent dribbling, but he just doesn't look to have full confidence in his abilities yet. So I think he'll come with time, but I think Poch should start playing Mudryk consistently.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we did see a very good Mykhailo Mudryk in preseason, Nicholas Jackson as well. I think that's a player who it's going to be more of like you're gonna have to give some of these players time, and I understand that, but knowing Chelsea supporters, they only have so much patience for new projects, which they're going to have to be patient for the time being, unless if it somehow gets as bad as Graham Potter did, which I think Pochettino will be out of a job, but I severely doubt that. Who knows? This could get clipped and posted 6 months later when I'm saying this now. Next, Crystal Palace. Looking at their past 4 games, scores and ratings for Roy Hodgson, stand-up players both on a negative and positive side of things. What do you guys think?
Yeah, they've got 2 wins. I think they sit in 7th, which is, I would say, probably above average for Palace. I think I'd probably give them like a 7 or an 8. It's weird because it's like Palace, pretty relatively unchanged 11. But I do think they'll do the same things that they did at the end of last season under Roy Hodgson. They're doing well right now. Edouard Mateta as a defensive Anderson and Gay. Johnstone Dean Henderson is incredibly strong.
Thank you, Crystal Palace, for 15 million for Dean Henderson. By the way, just want to throw that out.
Good job.
Love from me and Joe. Thanks for 15 mil for Dean Henderson. Really appreciate it, Palace.
It's like I said, pretty unchanged 11. I think they'll still keep doing the same things. We'll see how sustainable it is with this relatively unchanged team.
And speaking of sustainability, is this Michael Olise injury or absence proving to be, or will it prove to be a sort of a liability for Crystal Palace? What do you guys think? Do you think that they're really missing Olise at the moment?
It could be good for them to survive without him and then have him kind of giving them that boost a little later in the season. So far, I haven't really seen it, but he's undoubtedly a player that they're going to rely on at some point in the season.
And I did see they signed some kid from Brazil. That Brazilian winger from I think Santos or Palmeiras. I could be wrong. I probably am. Who knows? But yeah, more to expect from Crystal Palace going into the season. Let's see. Remembering what you had said in the season finale, if they will somehow defy your expectations and maybe even finish in the top half. Who knows? Probably not. No next, going into Everton and Everton. What can I say? Looking at their past run of games, scores and ratings for Sean Dyche and stand-up players both on positive and negative. Seriously, I'll throw this one to you. You've been quiet like Odegaard is mostly in big games.
And that's why he scored against you, lads.
No, I'll say Bruno instead.
Yeah. Everton's been pretty abysmal. Pretty shocking. 2 goals in 4 games, 3 losses, 1 tie against Sheffield United. It's just like one of these times, last 2 seasons, they've barely escaped. And I don't know. I think it might have to catch up with them. They have a great young left back in Ashley Young in the side. And I think they're missing Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He got a facial injury. So he's going to be out. But
or to be more specific, a jaw injury.
Oh.
I swear it was a facial.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a facial. I'm pretty sure he got a facial injury. But the BBC says he got a facial injury. So
nice.
But besides that, I really think this might be the season where they go down. I mean, they're playing Decore at like attacking mid. I mean, he got a goal, but
he's been all right for them.
I know, but that's not his position. I think I liked Onana last year. I think Idrissa Gana Gueye is washed, in my opinion, and I think Jordan Pickford needs to leave.
He signed a new deal. I think a new 4-year contract before the start of the season, but who knows? That could really mean anything. But how much pressure is Sean Dyche under at the moment? I mean, looking at his tactics, his boy Dwight McNeil is not even playing. He's playing James Garner, a promising central midfielder, on the right. He got rid of Iwobi, who was one of the best players last season. And I know, seriously, you know all too well about Iwobi, bringing back to Arsenal. Damari Gray's basically on strike. He wants to leave. I'm pretty sure he's probably secured his move to the Saudi Pro League by now. But I mean, it's just absolute chaos at Everton right now. And do you think Sean Dyche will be able to change Everton's fortunes, or do you think that he'll eventually the pressure will be too much and he will get the sack? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the sack is coming. I think when he managed Burnley, like it's just different, to be honest. I remember Arsenal played Everton their first game with Sean Dyche, and I remember the way they played was great because it was just like a new manager. They were playing his way, but I don't think that's the Everton way, and I don't think his tactics and what he does really works for this Everton side, just with the personnel and everyone there. Yeah, so honestly, like if we see that they can't get a win in 3 games, I'd say he's gonna go.
Yeah, and you know what? I think if he goes after that, I don't think anyone would be surprised. I mean, they brought in that through 35 million pound striker Beto, Portuguese international. So there's another striker in to try and help Everton out. Next, looking at Fulham, looking at their past run of games, scores and ratings for Marco Silva and standout players, both positive and negative. Andre, I'll go over to you for this one. Andre, you're on mute.
Oh, that's good. I was saying pass anyway. I don't know. Someone else talk.
I can do Fulham.
Yeah, someone I don't want to do Fulham.
Cheers, Fulham.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing for Fulham right now. I think they started the season all right. The Brentford loss obviously was not very good, but I thought they played really well against Arsenal. They put up a really good fight. And I think the big thing for Fulham at the moment is the loss of Joao Palhinha. Who I think is an extremely, extremely important player in their system.
100%.
And we obviously saw that against Manchester City. They completely fell apart, especially as the match wore on.
Definitely. And
I think that could be a big, big problem for them, is losing him this season.
Definitely. And we all know why, or if you didn't, or those, the viewers don't know why. Literally, deadline day move to Bayern Munich literally fell through. And it fell through at the last minute due to complications. And Andre has dipped. Andre's pulled a Harry Kane, and he is just dipped for whatever reason. But and I think that's definitely going to be an issue. Andre is back now. There he is. He did the unthinkable comeback. But as you said, Jose, I think that Joao Palhinha, as you stated perfectly, he's probably not only their most important player, but I think he's their best player as well. And he provides stability and a lot of balance in that midfield when you look at Harrison Reed and Brazilian preseason Pirlo, Andreas Pereira up there, or Arsenal legend Willian if he wants to go play in the number 10. But I think the issue for them is going to be goals. Scoring goals. I think the loss of Mitrovic, it's definitely left now a huge hole in that number 9 position. Without Mitrovic, seriously, who do you think Fulham's now going to call upon to score them the goals that they need?
Did you say my name?
Yes.
I mean, they have Raul Jimenez.
That's true.
Ever since, that Arsenal game, he really hasn't been the same, which is pretty sad. But, they got him for basically nothing.
£5 million.
Yeah, so, at the end of the day, it's great that they kept Palhinha, but they really do need a goal scorer. I don't really know who's going to be that goal scorer for them. I don't rate Henry Wilson. I don't think Traore is going to score. He'll probably have a couple runs, lather up some baby oil on his arms, and call it a day. So I really don't know who's going to be a goal scorer for them. The Pereira will get a goal or two, but that's really going to be a major issue. Jimenez is going to have to somehow get back to his old form because they're kind of lacking the goals right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I think goals, that's going to be an enormous issue. Moving into Liverpool, and looking at their first 4 games, standout players for Jurgen Klopp and standout players on your scores and ratings for Jurgen Klopp and standout players on a negative and positive side of things. What do you guys think?
I think they've looked good. I think that the Newcastle victory was one of the most surprising victories I've ever seen. Newcastle dominated for the entire match, and somehow this man Darwin Nunez finally came clutch for Liverpool and won it at the end. I was very, very surprised to see that. I thought Newcastle massively deserved to win that game, but that's football sometimes. So I think that overall their season has started well. They've had victories in almost every game. They haven't had the easiest start. Chelsea, Newcastle, and Villa all pretty good sides. So I think they've started well. I've loved Szoboszlai. I think he's been the standout player so far this season. He looks to be an amazing dribbler, and I wish we had signed him, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And seriously, I know to go, but just to give you one last question, but before we head out, looking at Liverpool's rebuild or midfield rebuild, you've looked at the profile of players that Liverpool signed. Ryan Gravenberch, Alexis McAllister, Dominic Szoboszlai. Do you think this is Jurgen Klopp? Looking at his past midfield of you look at his Champions League winning midfield. I'll just use it as an example. Henderson, Wijnaldum, and Fabinho. All 3 of those players, their profiles of midfielders that will work hard to win the ball back, that are pressing monsters, pressing merchants. And you look at the likes of Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai, far more technically gifted, technically good, and acute footballers. Do you think this is Jurgen Klopp making a change to his style of football rather than going from his midfield purely working hard at winning the ball back to putting more emphasis on ball retention, creating more opportunities for his front line, and not just focusing hitting teams on the counterattack, which is largely what he's done a lot?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a change, that's for sure, from the likes of Fabinho, Henderson, players not technically as gifted, but will definitely work extremely hard pressing. That's something that they were known for. When they were Champions League winners, they're pressing. This is different for sure, but I think it's a good different. I think it was time for Henderson. I don't think Fabinho was good the last 2 seasons. I'm bringing in the likes of McAllister, who also if you saw in the World Cup, he does work hard, but obviously not the same. I get what you're saying. They still have Curtis Jones as well. Who I think has a decent amount of potential. But yeah, it's definitely a change up. I think it helps the likes of, maybe it doesn't help the likes of Trent as much, but I think it, in terms of the defensive side, but I think it does help players like Nunez, players like Salah, so that, the quality of balls, the possession on the ball will be better. But I think honestly, Liverpool's biggest loss that's not talked about enough throughout the years was when they lost Wijnaldum. I think that affected them a lot. But I do have to go. Hey, yeah!
Nice.
Beautiful.
Fantastic. And that's coming in from Side Guy. Next, moving into Luton Town, who have lost all 3 of their games. Any positives at all for Luton? Standouts? Any standout players on a negative to positive side of things, and scores and ratings for poor Rob Edwards, who they've had to play Brighton, Chelsea, and West Ham as their opening 3 games? Anything at all?
I mean, I haven't seen much positives from them. I think that right now, I hope this changes for their sake, but it just doesn't look like they have the quality to compete with the teams that they're playing against. And I think that that's certainly becoming a bigger problem year by year as teams get promoted to the Premier League. It's hard for them not just to go straight back down, but I think that Luton do have that problem. I'm sure they'll become more accustomed to it. They'll get more points as the season goes on, but I think that as of now, it does not look like they have the players to compete with the rest of the league.
Yeah, and you look at Luton, and they really didn't spend any money. I mean, I
think that they spent they spent a few million on their stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they kind of wrote that off as their expenses for the season.
Yeah, and they had to upgrade their stadium on the they had to spend £10 million on their stadium just to like be eligible enough to be a Premier League stadium. That's why that match was postponed. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's looking peak for for Luton right now.
Yeah,
Um,
my positive was going to be cute stadium. That's about it. I don't really know.
cute stadium.
That's about it.
Next, going into Man City, and they have won all 4 of their games. Jose, standout players for Pep Guardiola or scores and ratings for Pep Guardiola and standout players both on the negative and positive side of things. I keep messing that up, man.
Yeah, this club is disgusting. We all hate them. Nobody likes them. I wish they would go bankrupt. Holland's been good, as usual. Their whole team is good. Like, there's not much to say. They're a really good team, as usual. They've been winning games seemingly very easily, despite narrowly. They've been getting a lot of goals. They've replenished pretty much. They signed Nunez for whatever reason. I don't know why they needed him, but they signed him.
Who?
I don't know. They've been good. Pep's been good. What else is new?
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough.
I mean, I think there has been this like small.
Oh, Nunez. Okay.
Yes.
I just realized that.
You look at their recruitment, obviously with Nunez, Doku,
Mm-hmm.
Kovacic. I think Pep has kind of realized the sort of high pressing that he's going to be faced with now in the Premier League. Now everyone's doing it. Everyone has a crazy press. Like multiple teams are seriously have got the coaches and ability to press highly the way that Pep sort of started doing when he came in and how Klopp flourished as well. So I think he's made an emphasis on his players actually taking more touches. I think he's got these players who have excellent ball retention. It's difficult to get the ball. They're all amazing dribblers. There's still obviously the quick touch, the quick passing plays is still there, but I think he has identified a lot of players that are incredible dribblers simply for the reason that it's hard to get the ball off them. And I think that's probably the stylistic change that we're going to see in Guardiola's side this season, and that stylistic change that's going to take him to the title inevitably somehow once again.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a player that we really have to look at is Julian Alvarez. And I say that now because we've seen that, Pep Guardiola's been starting him underneath Haaland when he could have opted to play someone else, given maybe that spot's a Cole Palmer giving him a chance, but he was sold to Chelsea for, kudos to Man City, by the way, because, how you get 45 million for Cole Palmer, who scored 0 Premier League goals, and now Manchester United couldn't get, 40 million for McTominay. That's, you know what, you have to applaud Man City to a certain extent for getting that money, man. I mean, they are brilliant at transfers and brilliant at business, but I do believe that Nunez. Do you think Nunez will slot right into that Gundogan spot? Do you think he'll slot right in as a starter, or do you think it's going to be Kovacic for the time being? What do you think?
It's hard. I mean, rotation's always like inevitable in that Guardiola side, but I do think just tactically he'll slot in perfectly. I don't think it'll be much of an adjustment. I don't know if he'll get in the 11 right away, but he'll gel well.
Fair enough. And next, going into Manchester United, Jose, and it is just pure and utter chaos right now. Looking at our last 4 games, scores and ratings for Erik ten Hag and stand-up players, both negative and both positive. Yes, Andre, we know. Yes, let's not talk about the second game of the season.
So that was too loud. That was stupid. I have to hear that. Who's the on my desk? It's cool. That was too loud.
Thank you, Andre, for that. But Jose, what do you think so far for us?
Yeah, it's been a poor start to the season. Our first 2 games, especially, were atrocious. I thought we did show a good amount of character in the Forest game, as we usually do at home. We've been great at home. That's our one positive. Ten Hag has turned Old Trafford into a fortress. I think we're 30 games unbeaten at Old Trafford, which is a good thing. But otherwise, it has been chaos, like you said. We've had transfer chaos. We for some reason we decided to wait for Amrabat until the very last minute just to make it look like a clutch signing when we could have gotten him for the same amount of money 2 weeks before or 1 month before even.
The beginning of the summer, back in July, but we spent that money on Mason Mount. We could have gotten a center back. We could have gotten Amrabat, and we decided to wait we could barely afford a £10 million loan deal for him.
Yeah, but there's a lot of stuff going on. Just today, we basically released a comment saying that we've heard about the Antony situation, but we're not doing anything about it, which is interesting. I don't know why our wingers can't behave themselves, but it's chaos as usual. We have terrible owners. Doesn't look like it's going to change for now. Hopefully the sale will go through before I die.
Same here.
Yeah.
And as you
I
said,
will say also, I think we were unlucky against Arsenal. I think we deserved at least a draw in the Arsenal game.
yeah, I agree with that. I do think that we could have used a draw, although Andre was right alongside me, watching my mental state fall apart as I watched Rice and Jesus just stick a dagger into my heart and sent Dallo sliding back to Portugal with that goal.
And Davis after the Garnacho non-goal. He was onside for sure. Yard onside.
Yeah, on first glance, I thought he was off, but I celebrated regardless and then was devastated.
Yeah, and when you look at Manchester United right now, I mean, it's 2023, and Manchester United, you know, in the words of Troops, we dressed like Plymouth and we played like Plymouth. Big long balls, and we have Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire at the back. You know, may as well bring in Andre's favorite manager of all time, Brendan Rodgers. You know, to reincarnate Leicester City days. You know, Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire. That's incredibly worrying for me. And I think the last thing I want to talk about, I think we have to talk about this Jadon Sancho situation because.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think everyone knows what happened. Ten Hag was asked about Sancho not being in the squad, and he said he's not been in because of performances in training. And then a few hours later, Jadon Sancho hit back immediately and said, "Don't read everything. Don't immediately read everything and buy into it. You know, I respect all the decisions made by the coaching staff. I want to play football with a smile on my face, but I believe I haven't been selected for maybe other reasons now, and have been a scapegoat for a long time." And more or less hitting back at Ten Hag and basically outright calling him a liar. And, you know, where on earth does the situation even go? Like, and how do you think the situation is going to be resolved? What do you think, Jose?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I think he should never play for the club again. I think if this happened under Fergie, he would never play again. And I'm sure Ten Hag would like to do the same. Whether he will be allowed to do the same is a different question because our owners are ridiculous. But I think that if it's up to Ten Hag, he won't play again. If it's not, he will. I hope he doesn't. He doesn't deserve to. I think that no one has the right ever to call out the manager. The manager absolutely has the right to call out players, especially if he's being asked directly about it. He's going to give the honest answer, and I respect and appreciate that from a coach. I think Mourinho would do the same thing, and he's a top-class coach as well. I think that Sancho shouldn't play for us again. I think we should sell him as soon as possible. Someone else can deal with him. It's fine. Maybe he'll be good there. Is what it is.
That's fair enough. I mean, but I also look at the other side of this situation, and you know, he's not outright saying that it's all the manager's fault. And I think when you look at who's ahead of him, and you look at Antony's recent performances, you look at Garnacho's recent performances, and you know, Pellistri's not even getting a get-go. And I think if you're Jadon Sancho, you're looking at yourself and you're saying, you know, how are these guys getting more opportunities than I am? And this is not me defending Jadon Sancho because everyone knows how much I adore the player. But I think, you know, to a certain extent, he's not necessarily, he's calling it the manager to a certain extent, but I also think he's also defending himself a little bit, saying, hey, hold on a minute, this is not the full story. But you know, hopefully this is a situation that can get resolved because this is a player that I like very much, and this is a player that can be an asset to us as well. When you think about it, when you have more quality in your side, the better you'll do. Andre, what do you think about the whole Jadon Sancho versus Erik ten Hag situation?
It's an interesting one to say. I think it's I remember when Tottenham was thinking of appointing Ten Hag, a concern was that he could be a little cold in his press conferences, his player management sometimes. I feel like he got into random little brawls like this before. So it's interesting. I really don't know what he's been like in the press conferences at United. I don't know what his attitude's been like. But I feel like it's probably I feel like Ten Hag's been misinterpreted, at least by Sancho, and Sancho kind of went crazy. So I don't know. I think if there's any bond between those two, that they've got to sort it out already. I don't know really who's at blame, if it's both, neither. I don't know. But yeah, let's see what it's like. If Ten Hag gets into more feuds like this with other players, then it's on him. But United and most other clubs have been through issues by backing the players instead of backing the manager. So you want to back the manager, absolutely, especially considering that United's rebuild is heavily reliant on Ten Hag right now. You figure for locker room, you're going to have to back Ten Hag or hope that they work it out. It's hard. It'd be problematic if they go ahead and back Sancho on this.
100%.
I just want to quickly respond to that. I think that if Ten Hag gets into feuds with more of the players, I still don't think it's on him, because I think that our players overall lack a lot of things that Manchester United players should have. And I think that we've gotten ourselves in trouble in recent years of backing players over managers, especially when Mourinho was here, when we backed players like Martial and Pogba who had concerns over Mourinho, and then they ended up being lousy players for us in the end and injured all the time. Players who will get you sacked because they do phenomenally in one game and then they get injured in the next, or they play shockingly in the next, or they're lazy, or they don't turn up to training on time, or they don't perform in training. So I think that the problem is always now going to be our players and not Ten Hag, because I think Ten Hag has had many chances to prove to us that he is a top class manager, and he's done so every single time. If you look at every situation we dealt with last year, Ronaldo and rotation issues, I think that Ten Hag has always made the right decision, and I trust him fully.
And it also speaks to just sort of the issue of having sort of the big role that social media plays in the modern game right now. It's just like,
absolutely.
Before, if this happened, and maybe it ticked Sancho off in the moment to hear that in a press conference, he couldn't release a statement right away. He'd have to schedule an interview, if you were talking years ago, right? And now it's all he has to do is text his publicist to go release a statement that same day. It's just maybe the decision making isn't the best there. And yeah, it is a disaster. It's that one moment might have just thrown away his United career, and that's sad. That wouldn't have happened before. The players just wouldn't have had the outlet to do that, and they would have shut the hell up and played better. I don't know.
Yeah. No, yeah, and no, I definitely agree with what both of you are saying, but I think this is a player who's still young. He's a lot of potential, but he's been playing the game long enough. He's had enough time now, but it would be a real shame to see a player who we pursued for so unbelievably long to have his United career thrown away like this. It would be a real shame. But hopefully this will get worked out. He can be reintegrated into the squad. Ten Hag and Sancho can sit down. They can discuss. Sancho can apologize, and the situation can be moved on. Next, getting into Newcastle, and you look at their past 4 games. 1 win, 3 losses, but again, not the easy start to the season. Scores and ratings for Eddie Howe, and standout players from a negative and positive side of things. Jose, what do you think?
I mean, the thing is, they've looked good, but they've lost 3 games, so it's a bit of a question mark at the moment. I mean, I think that I've liked that the way that they've been playing. I think that they've been playing well. I think they've been very unlucky. Sandro Tonali has played really well. I believe he won their Player of the Month. But they've just not been able to get it over the line, especially over Man City and Liverpool. Man City, they just about weren't able to score the goals. Liverpool, they just couldn't close out the game. I think that that's what happens when you're new to being a big team in the Premier League, because I think that they are part of the big, I'll call it Big Seven, I guess, right now in the league, and I think that they are just.
We'll make a Big Six. We'll make a Big Six because one of the so-called Big Six isn't really a big club.
Where are you in the table right now?
How many trophies have we won?
We can't really talk on Tottenham right now, Davis. I'll be honest.
That's true. Yeah, we can't really say anything right now because we've been shocking.
But anyways, I think better things are to come for Newcastle. I think that it's just a bit of a rough patch at the moment, but they should be back on track very soon.
No, yeah, and they should be, and yeah, they haven't had the easy start to the season.
Yeah, they probably had the most difficult start actually of any team so far.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I think Anthony Gordon as well. I've definitely seen some evolution in his game as well. When you look at the way he cooked Trent but cooking Trent at right back, Jose, you've seen it all the time with Vinicius, so nothing new for you. Next into Nottingham Forest, Andre, over to looking at their past 4 games, scores and ratings for Steve Cooper and stand-up players on a negative and positive side of things.
I'd probably give him like a. Where are they in the table right now? I was thinking like a 6-7.
They got 2 wins.
Yeah, look, they're nice. That's decent. Awoniyi has looked. Awoniyi, however you say, he's looked brilliant. Real well-rounded right now. At different. I think we could see the potential in past seasons where he had the physical attributes to be a star, but he wasn't really unlocking his full potential yet.
The technical side of it.
Yeah, this season he's just looked sharper. He's looking brilliant, strong, fast, decent touches on the ball. I'd say he's probably my standout player. I think Steve Cooper is still he's going to do a job for them. I think the fan base is already falling for him, and I think he'll keep. I think he's going to keep doing well for the whole season. I think he'll stay, and I don't think a top half finish is whatever, but they'll survive. They'll be good.
Yeah, and I think something that we have to remind ourselves is that many times last season that this fan base was calling for Steve Cooper to be sacked, and the ownership stuck by him and said, "Nope, this is the man who we're going for. We're protecting the manager. We're going to back the manager." And as always, Nottingham Forest making a million signings. They signed Ibrahim Sangare, brilliant midfielder from I think PSV Eindhoven. The once promising young prodigy Callum Hudson-Odoi finally left Chelsea for a total of £8 million, and looks like Nottingham Forest are finding themselves. And I said this about Awoniyi a little while ago. I think this is someone that whether it's in January or the summer, I won't be surprised if this is someone who moves to someone like Brentford, for example, or will go to a bigger club in the Premier League, and will find himself there. Next, looking at Sheffield United, looking at their past 4 games, and again, not the easiest start of the season for Sheffield United. Looking at the loss, not horrific. Jose, scores and ratings for Paul Heckingbottom and stand-up players both on a negative and positive side of things.
Yeah, it's been I don't know. They haven't had. I mean, they're not the best side, but I think that their start to the season has not been too difficult when you look at it. It's Palace, Forest, Everton, City. City obviously is a difficult match. I think that they did well to only lose 2-1 in that game, and not by a lot more. But yeah, a poor start definitely. I would say probably a D for them so far this season.
That's fair enough. I mean, and as you said, like when you look at their losses, it's 1-0 or 2-1. Drawing against Everton, I think that was a real sort of that was their chance to get any points. But they signed a new boy, Cameron Archer from Aston Villa. 2 goals in that Everton match. Definitely looked like he was causing Everton problems. But then again, a lot of
he did win man of the match in that match as well.
Yeah. So fabulous start from him. Hopefully, him and Ollie McBurney can strike a really good partnership up front. But time will only tell what will happen. Next, into the side that I was dreading to talk about now this time around for the first time in a long time, Tottenham Hotspur, looking at their past 4 matches. Andre, scores and ratings for Ange Postecoglou and standout players both on a positive and negative side of things, even though we all know that positive is going to be Davinson Sanchez right up there at number 1.
Okay. Gone now to Galatasaray. I don't know if you guys saw that, actually.
No, yeah, he did.
Yeah, he's gone.
I know, you're very sad.
He's making more money than everyone else there, and it's caused a lot of stir up in the locker room. And yeah, my team's looked. It feels like Tottenham back. I think Postecoglou and my whole team really gets, I think, pretty close to perfect. It's like a 9.5.
They've been
really good start to the season. I couldn't have really asked for much more, given the circumstances that Postecoglou was dealt. Our midfield has been brilliant. Pape Saracen has been really strong. He's clearly
they do well against Manchester United as well. I think he got man of the match that performance, or was it
possibly?
Basuma?
I think still Basuma. But
both of them have been outstanding, though.
Yeah, they've been outstanding. Basuma is just pulling the strings everywhere. I'm scared to lose him for AFCON. James Maddison has been doing everything in attack, just creatively. Udogi is
him and Pape Sarr, both of them.
yeah, wow. Udogi is just already I think one of the best fullbacks in the league. I see him already going to City in a year or two, to be honest. I think it's just loads of positives for my team. The one negative you could
Already
say,
one of the best fullbacks in the league.
I think he is. I think the only negative you could say is really Richarlison, right? Underwhelming. He's struggling. He's clearly. What's sad is that like you can't really knock it to a lack of effort or just that. Yeah, his headspace. It's just he's been trying very hard, and it reminds me a bit of me playing in teams that were too good for me. It was like he's clearly trying very hard, but it's literally he's just things aren't clicking for him. And it's sad that the first game that we start Son and striker, he bags a hat trick. Richarlison, I would say, is probably really the only negative I can think of. Squad depth is hard. I don't think we have much, but given we're playing one game a week, we've just signed Brendan Johnson, who looks like a really good addition to our attack.
£15 from Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, but Postecoglou, he's leading the way. I think he's going to be a top manager. I think he'll probably go to one of the Manchester clubs in a couple of years. To be honest, I think he's doing that good.
Yeah, I don't think there's any hope in hell's chance Stanley Levy is going to sanction that departure without a huge sum of cash. But I think one that you missed, Mickey Van de Ven. He's come in and he's made that Tottenham back four look just a lot more secure. Even though Darren Sanchez have been an amazing partnership for Tottenham. I'd probably say the best ever, maybe better than Alderweireld and Vertonghen, probably.
Yeah, right. No, the defense is interesting. I mean, Van de Ven has had a good start, but I honestly think it's because Romero looks like a different player. Ever since we gave him the captaincy, he's not the reckless Romero that signed at first. I don't think he's gotten a yellow card yet. I don't think he's given
Romero the captaincy.
Right? Romero, so he's the third captain.
Oh, the leadership group.
So we have Son captain. If Son comes off, it goes to Romero. If not Romero, then goes to Madison, I think. So ever since Romero has sort of been given that a bit more of a leadership role, he's just looked more mature. He's not as reckless. Van de Ven, I guess, is athletic and he's strong. He's definitely helped Romero a bit, but I think a lot of it is the stability defensively has actually been to Romero. It's credit to him. He's looked like he's not reckless Romero anymore. He doesn't scare me as much. I think he's looked a better player. He's still the strong tackler, and he's just got a little more mentality.
No, 100%. I couldn't agree more. And I think, Jose, when you look at their match against Manchester United, I think this is so evident of how good this Tottenham side can be with some further backing. I mean, not only was it, on them, but I think it also shows how poor Manchester United are as well. Just to quickly go back to Manchester United just for a quick minute, I think that there are a lot of gaping holes in that side. I think just for players, I mean, I didn't even get my input on any standout players. Do we have any? No. I can only think of negatives for me. Mount, terrible, dreadful, awful. Anthony, Brazilian Kylie Minogue, spinning around as per usual.
What about the
uninterested, or I don't know what's going on with him. Martial injured as always, although he got 2 starts. Bruno missing in big games. There's so many problems with that side that I can just go into. And
the felony player, Onana, you're praising him. He said he's looked better. He's your bright spark, probably.
Onana's been fantastic in my opinion.
Oh, he's been brilliant.
But I think that it's going to be a big problem when he leaves for AFCON because we're going to become very reliant on him, and then I don't think we have a goalkeeper behind him who can play as well as he does. Bayendier, but I don't know who Bayendier is. I don't know.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't know much about him. I heard that he's been that he's a decent goalkeeper. He was the number one at Fenerbahce, and Agent Pastor Fred putting in one last good shift for us. We will miss Pastor Fred. If we had Pastor Fred in that midfield, Tottenham's midfield would have gotten dominated. Anyways, going back to Tottenham for a minute, Jose, just to ask you, what do you think Tottenham do about this whole Richarlison situation? Do you think this is something that can easily be fixed, or where do you think Richarlison goes from here?
I mean, I think they can surely get Richarlison playing. We see how he plays for Brazil. I think that with players like Son around him, I think that there's surely a way that he can thrive as center forward, or maybe not center forward, but around there. I think that he can do well for them.
That's fair enough. Going into West Ham, Jose, I'll stick with you. Looking at their past 4 games, scores and ratings for David Moyes and stand-up players, both on a negative and positive side of things.
Yeah, they've looked surprisingly really good. They've had a great start to the season, I think. And I'm just trying to remember who I was going to mention. Jared Bowen and Lucas Paqueta have both looked fantastic.
Bowen's been absolutely fantastic.
I'm very happy for Paqueta because I really like his style of play, and I'm glad he's finally getting near his best in the Premier League.
Yeah, definitely. Lucas Paqueta has been something very, very special, and he's a very good player as well. And looking at that Declan Rice money and who West Ham brought in, Edson Alvarez, James Ward-Prowse, who we predicted would stay at Southampton, but he was out the door. And Mohamed Kudus as well, brought in.
I think brilliant replacements. Ward-Prowse proving his whatever. They balance each other out perfectly.
£30 million for Ward-Prowse. I mean,
seriously 3 great signings. I think it's good. Their midfield's going to be fantastic.
I really hope Kudus can get playing because he's a fantastic player to watch. His performances in Eredivisie were he's a very fun player to watch. I'm very excited for him.
He's a fun player to watch, but like the issues you saw at Paqueta, do you think that this David Moyes' rigid style of play could potentially stifle Kudus's flaring attacking qualities?
Yes, definitely. But I think we're seeing Paqueta start to perform now, so maybe it'll take some time. But he'll have time. He's not a starter yet, so I think that he can have some time to acclimatize, and we'll see how it goes from there.
And how much time do you think David Moyes will be given this season? Because I
personally think he should be given a lot of time. I think that last season they were fully focusing on the Conference League, and I think that their performances in the Premier League were pretty bad, but they made up for it by winning the Conference League, and they're playing Europa this season. So I think that they will have a lot of chances to give a lot of their good players time to play.
That's fair enough. And lastly, going into Wolves before we end off the show, looking at their past 4 games, scores and ratings for Gary O'Neill and stand-up players both on a positive and negative side of things. Andre?
Yeah, I think given – and we definitely shat on Wolves before in the preseason thing. So I think –
you lot predicted them to go down.
Yeah, so I think O'Neill doing this well and Bournemouth already kind of looking like a sinking ship is proving O'Neill's managerial credibility. He is could be maybe the new manager bounce, but given how much of a hole they were in, I think it's just O'Neill definitely showing his worth once again. So let's see how sustainable it is, but I think they've looked bright under O'Neill. I think they can keep pushing forward. I think he looks so far like the right candidate to keep him going and keep him up.
I will say I predicted Wolves to finish 20th at the beginning of the season, and that was based more on Lopetegui staying for at least maybe 6
That's very, you don't. That's
and having a proper terrible run, and not them signing Gary O'Neill before the season. So I would be very, very surprised if they finished 20th with Gary O'Neill at the helm.
And just to end up the show, Jose, like looking at Wolves right now, what do you think their biggest problem is right now? Because they're still not. Their Wolves aren't like steady Eddie. They're not ones to be writing off to go down. I'd say.
Yeah, I don't write them off to go down, but I think that I think goal scoring for me has to be their biggest problem, and I think it's been that way for a long time now at Wolves. That goal scoring is their main area of concern.
100%.
They're not at a point yet where they're going to get goals from all over. They're still reliant on what's his name, Alcacer, and what's his name from the Bundesliga. So I think it's 100% going to be goal scoring. Hopefully O'Neill can get them to find goals from players that we're not expecting. I think if they do that, then they're sure to stay up.
Fair enough. And there you have it. We've reached the end of our show. Jose, Andre, anything else to say before we end off the show?
We're getting Champions League.
We could be in trouble. Yeah.
We very well could be.
I think there are so many teams that could get Champions League ahead of us this season. I think you got Brighton, Newcastle, even.
And it's a top 5. It's top 5 now.
And it's top 5, and I still am not confident.
No, I'm not either. But I'm praying everything will improve. Let's just hopefully when we revisit.
I'm praying that will improve, and other teams will get worse.
Anyways, there has been season 4 episode 2, and we will speak to you in a bit. Peace. Thank you so much for your time watching this, and let us know in the comments down below what are your thoughts on the topics that have been in store in this feature of Premier League Primetime in the comments down below. Smash like on the video and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to check out our other platforms on Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and wherever you are watching this in the world. We hope you have an absolutely fantastic day / evening.